And we're back on Global TV Talk Show. I'm in San Diego, and our very special guest today is a good friend, Sandra Corona in Saudi Arabia. Hello.
Hi, Ed. How are you?
That's great. Thank you for your time. So are we
Uh,
interrupting your dinner pattern, or does that come later?
no, actually, that already happened. We're kind of used to eating between 4:30 in the afternoon. So that's dinner for us. That's it. We're done.
Yeah. So do you do that for weight control or because you have other things to do in the evenings?
Well, my husband is diabetic. So,
Ah,
diabetics have to have a certain schedule.
I
So we
see.
just keep it like that. That's why we're doing it. Yep.
All right. Well, that's cool that you worked that out. My phone just
Yep.
went dark. Okay, Sandra, we're going to talk about expatology. Am I saying that right?
Yes, you are. Expatology. Correct.
Okay, in your
Yes.
words, expatology, that's the study of being an expat?
Of all the studies that I have gathered throughout the years, if you put together all the lessons, that you learn being an expat, as an expat, then managing expats, then coaching them. I didn't even know, I had no idea that I was coaching expats. You coach them in their daily lives, you coach them in adjusting, you coach them in, listening to them and giving them advice. Coaching is not about giving advice, but you give advice on what you know in the global mobility world. And then you put together the other certifications that I've gathered, which is thanatology, then ICQ, right? The intercultural management, and all of these things come together. And when you think about it, you're like, why does it always back to what I used to do, which is global mobility? It's the management of life, of working as an expat overseas, and not even necessarily just overseas, but in any other location around the world, right? And that involves everything you believe in. It's you as a person, all your beliefs, your habits, your traditions, your cultures, everything you are as a human being, you take it with you wherever you go, right? And so you have to learn how to live life with others around you and them with you. So it's the gathering of knowledge to manage life wherever you go.
So the world of global mobility is really interesting. A very long time ago, I was introduced to it from an advertising point of view. Um,
Yeah.
uh, uh, Last century, I was think of it. I was publishing print magazines uh, primarily, and that's all
Okay.
advertising based.
Mhm.
And they were the U.S. bound relocation guide series.
Okay. Okay.
And I started in Boston and then sold that entity and picked up and relocated myself and my business idea into LA. And I didn't know much about it. And it was a challenge. But I learned all about relocation myself and what others are going through. And so the publication that I founded was renamed to be California Bound,
Mm-hmm.
destination oriented. And
Okay.
and I didn't think of the mental stuff. I didn't think of the fear. I didn't think of anything other than
Mm.
where the hell am I? And I don't know anybody here. I got to make new friends. I got to do new things. And part of that was
Right.
okay because I needed a change
Right.
anyway. But
Yeah.
and I
Mm-hmm.
love the weather, other than the past month or so in the rain here in Southern California. In all these years I've been here, it's just delightful. Like today, sun shining now. It's a little past 7 a.m. here in the morning. and we've had rain after rain and lousy days. Now, you in Saudi Arabia, you got lots of sunshine, so it's like a no-brainer. But
Yeah.
well,
You have
so
no idea how much we miss the rain, though. Yeah.
well, be careful what you wish for. We have a lot of it here, and you can have it.
Thank you.
Are you going to move to Houston or where?
So yes, the plan is in a year and 1 month to relocate back home to Houston, Texas. We're still, we're still thinking where at the end we're going to end up because my husband has so many thoughts. You were asking me, about the relocation and it's going to be easy and all this kind of stuff. And actually it's not easy. It has so much personal exhaustion that goes through things that you don't think of. Like you were saying, you were not thinking about the moving process and everything else. You're so focused on what you want to achieve that you're not focusing on the internal stuff until you kind of sit down and say, oh, wow, now how do I manage this? How do I do that? And one of the things that we were talking about, and I asked my husband, is the cost of life. And I told him, hey, by the way, how much did your haircut and beard cost you? Because there's this nice place down the road. And he paid barely $30, barely. And they did an amazing job. It was so perfect, so nice done. And I told him, and how much is a haircut and just, shaving and all that kind of stuff in Houston? He said, a little bit more over than $90. And I said, okay, I just want you to think about what you just told me. Just think about it a little bit. We don't pay utilities, we don't pay mortgage, we don't pay cell phones, we don't pay all these kind of things. Are you ready for the cost and the life that's, the impact of suddenly, because companies ask you for 1 month, 1 month, 1 month and a half in advance, right? So that you can start living and putting utilities under your name and all this kind of stuff. And he suddenly did this face, he janked his face and he's like, I said, answer me, have you thought about it? He's like, whoa, wait a second, I had not thought about that. There's so much that you don't think of.
So let me jump in. Is he going to stay with the same organization?
No, we are going to look for a job. We're going to be looking for something
that has to start now.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Now, exactly. You don't have to divulge the name of the company, but it's probably oil centered and or energy centered, and there's lots of choices there. And if you need an introduction, I happen to know some people. And I'm very happy. So I'm in downtown San Diego, and I have a hairstylist, a block down the street here.
Okay.
And it's a 5-star building. It's a 5-star operation. And I pay $40 and I give her $10. Yeah. So it's 50. So I don't know about $90 in Houston. That's unheard of. That's crazy. You need to find another place.
Well, it would be within what we have. Let's put it that way. If you were to take the same business where he went here, and you were to go and search for the same type of business in Houston, you would be paying that. But if you go to a regular barber shop, the guys talk and all this kind of, of course, you're going to be paying something similar, right? But we were talking about all those things. So first he has to decide what he wants to do and where he wants to end and where he finds a job. So that's where we are right now.
Is he involved in engineering?
Yes, he's a structural engineering with a PE, professional engineering. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he's a mechanical engineer?
No, civil structural engineer.
Yeah, mm-hmm. Okay. And he's been doing that a long time because you've been in Saudi now 9 years, 8-9 years, right?
Yes, correct. Mm-hmm.
And where were you before Saudi with him?
At Houston. Houston. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, same company?
No, he actually was called in from that company, and then that's how we made the jump.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh God.
All right. So th- that company has
Mhm.
U.S.
Yes.
offices. I don't know what they
Yes,
do,
correct.
but I know that
Mhm.
they're heavily involved in a lot of things.
Yeah, yeah,
But there are also others. And
yes.
I would think that kind of skill and
Mhm.
experience could be easily transferable,
Yes,
depending on
absolutely.
the
Yes,
opportunity, of course. But
exactly.
also, this kind of experience would be, this is just an idea and just top of the head stuff.
Okay,
He could be an instructor at a business school to
okay,
talk reality for students about global business and living as an expat and being overseas and dealing with all that. And just keep in mind, there's a lot there.
yeah,
And I would welcome him to consider being a guest on Global TV Talk Show. And we could do
yep.
an interview that he could use, if he likes it, as part of his resume.
Thank you. And I'll let him know. That's a
Hey,
good
yeah.
idea.
So you never
Yeah,
know. So let's talk
right.
about mental health, uh, but
Oh,
let's change the words to well-being because it
yes.
has a
Mm-hmm.
broader meaning.
Mm-hmm.
So the
Mm-hmm.
theme of our TV shows here across the month, it would be several
Mm-hmm.
editions, is about creating as a manager or a leader, creating a
Mm-hmm.
culture of well-being or
Mm-hmm.
creating a culture for well-being to evolve in the
Right.
workplaces, whether it's in the office or remote,
Mm-hmm.
because they have different stuff. At home, culture of well-being at home, and whatever that means and whatever it takes. Culture of well-being in the community, wherever that is. And we're asking people to talk about those things. And it's really fascinating getting a cross section of ideas and experiences. So, uh, one of your comments to me is about a box of chocolates as what as medicine, but it doesn't come with the instructions from the pharmacy.
So one day I was just sitting down, and I'm going to be very honest as to where my thoughts come, and it's it's in the bathroom.
But it all comes out.
Well, it's especially when I'm taking a shower, okay? And I'm in the bathroom. Yes, taking a shower.
I'm gonna
There's,
have a drink.
there you go. When you're in the shower, there's some connection between the waterfall, there's all these ideas start coming out. And you start thinking about metaphors, right? And I was thinking about, is really life a box of chocolates? And I was watching earlier some show, and somebody was saying, I knew that was going to happen. I knew. And how many times do we not find ourselves saying, I knew that was going to happen, right? But yet we still did it. And I know life is about taking chances, because you cannot be always doing things safely. If you were living your life in a safe way, well, you're never going to experience anything, right? So, but most of the times, you already know what's going to happen. You just take the chance. And when I think about that metaphor about life is a box of chocolates, you never know what you're going to get, I don't believe it so much. I really don't. I think most of us know what can happen. And most of the times, it's 99.99% of the times that we know what's going to happen, right? And so we cannot say that life does not come with instructions. We know what's going to happen, and yet we still do it. We still do it because we are curious by nature. we have this thing about wanting to explore, to find the chance to that, even if we know we're doing the same thing and we know it's going to happen, we're always hoping for the best, you know? And I say that you really cannot say that life does not come with instructions or you don't know how to live life. We all know how to live life. There's a reason why we experience things since we're little, right? We live based on our experiences, and as we grow, we use those past experiences to bring them towards new experiences, and so on and so on and so on. And so I think that when somebody says, I didn't know this was going to happen, it's not true. We just wanted to hope that something was going to come out different, but it's not, right? And that is part of a culture, that is part of your beliefs, that it's part of traditions and habits. And that's why, you know, one of the things that I told you before we started talking was that we are who we are wherever we go, right? And so what is that you wanted to say? Go ahead.
I don't know. Let's see. The element of fear.
Yes,
You know, it's
exactly.
3 o'clock in the morning, it's one thing, and then you get up and move around and look at what's happening in the world, and somebody sends you something, and all of a sudden you don't have that fear anymore. You know, it's just disappeared.
Yeah.
Or
Yes.
put in a place in a dark corner somewhere over there.
Well, that's part of life, right? If we don't experience life, if we don't live it, you're never going to be surprised. Most of the times, again, like I said, you know what's going to happen, but we like a surprise factor. We like to say, oh, it worked out. You know, I didn't believe it was going to work out. But yes, deep side in you, you know it's going to work out. And so, you know, for me, when I tell people in culture, life is really not a box of chocolates, but for the purpose of it, let's use that metaphor because it's nice to see that the same box of chocolates that you're opening in your location is the same box of chocolates that somebody else is opening in another location. So you always have something in common. There's always a middle place. There's always some way that you're going to find something in common with other people, and that is experience, knowledge.
One of our speakers on other global TV talk shows is a woman by the name of Yvonne Kwa, and
Yeah.
she works for the World Bank in
Mm-hmm.
Washington, and
Mm-hmm.
but in the Family Network, which
Mm-hmm.
means she's a coach and a manager, and she's written a book that is become a bestseller. It's called "Whose Career Is It? Yours, Mine, or Ours?" It has to
Mm-hmm.
do with a dual career
Mm-hmm.
situation, okay, and who makes the decisions and who benefits, who gets hurt. You being in Saudi, you're really not working. You are, but you're not, and
Mm-hmm.
it's
Mm-hmm.
not the same thing because you're together and you're in this place where it's all inclusive and as you said, very comfortable for
Mm-hmm.
a long period of time. So when you relocate back to the US, you know, there's a lot of craziness going on, but you're already familiar with the Houston area. It's a huge region. I assume you're going to be on the north side. Um, that's where a lot of people from the energy industry live,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and some
Yes.
out west in Katy area. But
Yep.
um, there's a lot of action in that
Mm-hmm.
market. And you know, here in Southern California, it's almost the same kind of thing. Everything is spread out, or I mean,
Yep.
literally hundreds of miles. Yet people don't go from one side of Southern California to another unless they have a business appointment or there's a tourist attraction. It's you know, you get on a plane or you get on the freeway or you get on the train, and you don't
Mm-hmm.
stop in the middle. um,
Mm-hmm.
so you don't have that now, do you? That kind of life?
No.
No, you just stay within a specified area for the most part.
Yes. We Saudi I mean, there's many cities and many little towns and provinces, right? We're divided mostly by provinces. And so I live in the Eastern Province. Okay. But the way where I move around is very nearby where I live. So it's really not, I don't go to, let's say, Dammam, which would be, let's say, San Francisco to LA.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that's an hour plane ride or 400 miles. What about Riyadh?
Exactly.
How far away is Riyadh from where you're at?
Riyadh is 4 hours and a half to 5 hours, depending on how fast or slow you drive. But yes, Riyadh is the city. I'm sorry, and it's 4.5 hours. Yeah.
Yeah, like from here in San Diego, I'm on the Mexican border. I mean, literally 8 miles from where I'm sitting here in downtown San
Uh-huh.
Diego. And LA downtown is 130 miles,
Okay.
which really isn't that far, but it could take 4 hours by car, more likely 2.5. All
Mm-hmm.
right. All
Mm-hmm.
right. So,
Yes.
yeah. So, and I stopped doing it because it's so frustrating and it takes forever.
Yes. Yes. Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
So I take the train, and that's 3 hours.
Oh, wow.
It,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
it's not a TGV super train. I mean, it goes, but there's stops, and it takes a long time.
We have a train here too. It takes you also to Riyadh. Now, Riyadh is the industrial city. That's really where the higher positions are located. And so it's a very, very nice city, Riyadh. When you go, it's very lovely.
I've never been there. I'd like to do that someday. So let's talk about boundaries in life and boundaries in your current life, but I'm not asking you to get personal here, but just the idea
No,
of boundaries that
yeah,
you have because of custom and because of relationships and because of what's
right,
required by the situation where you find yourself these days,
right.
and you're going to move and you're
Yeah.
not going to have boundaries. So this this can be a very unsettling experience that it doesn't hit you until you're there. You get off, you sit on a plane, or going to be a long plane ride, but
Mm-hmm.
but then you're going to drive somewhere and go into a hotel, or you're going to have a home, or you're going to do something, maybe an apartment for temporary housing till you get figured out what you're doing. Or maybe you're going to try to scope all that out from 10,000 miles away, which I guess it's possible, but you don't know what the walls are like or what the neighborhood is like until you're there. You can't see it
Yes.
on video. It's just not going to be the same.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you've got a challenge in front of you, and
I do.
and there are others who've already been there and done that. And I can connect
Yeah.
you with some others who um, have an attitude and a deep experience from resettling, relocating, whatever it's called, repatriating. And
Yeah.
her name is Doreen, and she and her husband for many years were in where you are.
Okay.
They're much older now.
Okay.
And she called, and I'll send you one of those programs I did with her on this
Okay.
very same topic.
Okay.
And
Okay.
but it's an older version of you, so
Okay.
it may not be appropriate. But anyway, she's an interesting lady, and her name is Doreen. But she calls it rewiring and the mental health of having that attitude right away.
Yeah.
Don't
Yes.
think of it as resettling, because you're not. It's going to be absolutely, totally different for you.
Yes.
Although
Yes.
it will look like, you remember it or whatever. But in the last 10 years, the US economy has absolutely boomed for educated, intelligent people. Those who aren't as educated or for some reason didn't study in high school, um, they have had a rougher time here in a very
Yeah.
competitive environment, and not everybody is doing well.
Mm.
But people who do have an education and do have training and do uh, have prepped themselves for the new world of tech, there's a lot of choices and opportunities,
Okay.
and doors will open
Okay.
once you get connected. So you need to do that in advance, and you
Right.
should use Zoom or whatever. Um, and uh, that's the pathway. It's not going to be a solution, but it's a pathway.
Right. Right.
Okay, and
Yes.
so it's a
It,
process, and
it
it's going
is.
to take a long time. And now,
It is.
even though you may make an immediate connection, the connection you make and sound good today may change in a week or two because of how you
Yes.
change, or because you get
Yes.
confused, or because of other choices, things like that.
Yes.
I'm not here to scare
Yes.
you, but I've heard that it can be really difficult. So
It is.
you need to prepare yourself and think of rewiring your brain and your life rather than ending something. Sure, you're
Yes.
moving on,
Correct.
but it's this thing that you're doing, expatology, is absolutely setting you up for success, because you're in that place where you're going to be dealing with change, and you're already living it and studying it. And the concept here is to understand uh, the grocery stores, you know, and
Yes.
CVS is the pharmacy, even though you can get pharmaceutical stuff in the grocery stores, the big ones,
Yes.
but they have their own. And
Right. Right.
okay, and they're everywhere. And so I'm from Boston, Mass originally, and CVS actually started as consumer value stores. This is going back a very long time. And there was this little company. I mean, it was well funded. Um, and and now they bought this huge insurance company called Aetna, which was in Hartford, Connecticut.
They did. Okay.
Yeah,
That's a
I mean,
surprise.
yeah, well, it still operates under its own name and all that,
Okay.
but it's the CVS money that took over all that old line New England money.
Wow.
Huge. And so there's several like things that have happened here in the US the last 10, 15 years. I mean, giant. And it's like a movie. I mean, like a futuristic movie that, but you still live your life. You still do things like you would, but
Right.
everything is
Yeah.
bigger and larger if you're going to be in a big metropolitan area. All
Right.
right. Now
Right.
you don't have to be, and some people have run away. They, 500,000 people have departed California because they're sick of that. And so where do they go? They go into another one, but not as big.
Yes.
They go to
Correct.
Vegas, or they go to Phoenix area from here, Southern California, which is uh, Phoenix is a 6 hour drive, and
Is
or
it
one
kind of
hour
like
flight.
it's kind of like the big city, small town feeling, right? Cities that they moved to.
Yeah, but it's still a city, but it's just not a giant metropolis.
Exactly.
It's all spread
Yes.
out and more
Yeah.
modern,
Yes.
and everything is there that you need. And you don't need the big time.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
because of that, people are different. I mean, it's the same
Yeah.
thing, but
Yeah. Look, I can tell you one thing. One of the things that I've even on vacation, I was telling a friend of mine, the mentality is not the same when we go on vacation to Houston. Of course, I'm smiling for the almost 3 weeks that I'm there because it's just vacation. So everything is shopping, everything's happy, everything's this, and I get along with everybody. But there comes a time where I start feeling tired. And it starts getting to you, right? The big city feeling, the people rushing and going and here. And here in Saudi Arabia, we still have, oh my God. Now I'm part of the we. We still have the small feeling of a town. Railroads. Roads are still, in progress and all this kind of stuff. And it just feels small town. There's still development. And when I come back, it's like, you get to rest from the big city and all the rushing, and everybody wants customer service like now. And in Saudi Arabia, it's like, inshallah, take it easy. It's gonna happen, and I've gotten to that point where I'm like, you tell me you're gonna do something, just move on. I can tell you that when I arrived, I was pulling my hairs out because people would not act when they would say that they would. So now the other way around, now, like you said, like your friend is saying, rewiring yourself. But I don't want to go back who I was. People change.
Right.
I feel better now with myself of who I've become. And it is scary. And then, now to think that that's going to be my life. And it's going to be going back to all of this impact of having to catch up with life and doing things fast. And, it's an impact, but it's going to be okay. That's what I know. It's going to be okay.
This is really good. Okay, so one of the key items is communications, and we're just talking about that. What does that mean?
Yes.
That means,
yeah.
What does that mean to you?
Communication. Okay, so to me, it's the language that we either create as a group, as an individual group, as a community, as a society, and that's how we survive, right? That's what helps us become a culture. That's what makes the country a country, right? The way that we speak, how we communicate. But when it comes to a very personal and individual basis, it's what I was telling you earlier. If we put it in the relocation language, communication, there's a communication that a lot of people avoid during the process of the moving, which is to being honest with themselves and saying, are you ready for what we're going to experience? Are you aware that we're going to have differences? Are you aware that we're going to have different opinions and different likes? And, maybe you're going to like this house more than I will, and I'm not going to like it. And so there's right now, if you think about a couple, the communication, you don't even think about it because you're in agreement right now. Everything is blissful. But when you're in the process of relocating, then it becomes a new language now, because now you're going to experience new things. Now it's, okay, you ready, right? We're going to go house hunting. So what do you want? And to avoid those kind of situations that you already know, like to avoid the box of chocolates experience impact thing, you want to sit down and say, okay, what are we going to look for? I want this, I want that. And, you want to be prepared. And that's what I'm preparing my husband. I would not be a good global mobility relocator if I didn't anticipate these conversations with
So
my
let me
husband.
ask you a question. Your current home, is it in a planned unit development subdivision kind of a thing? Is it multi-level, or is it a ranch house, single floor?
It's a single floor, and it's in a community, what they call it, a compound. It's a compound just because it's surrounded by concrete walls, right?
Yeah.
And
it's a guarded gate?
It's exactly. We have a guard in each two gates have guards. At the beginning, when I arrived, it was with soldiers. Then eventually it started changing to just guards, and now it's just staff. So, and it was based on the level of seriousness of dangerous that some American expats were experiencing back in the days. That's where we live. It's one floor. So right now we're very happy. And that's what we're looking for.
So
because
you
we
have
also have two dogs.
Yeah, swimming pool?
We have a community
Yeah.
swimming pool.
Okay. So
Mhm.
you want to replicate that kind of lifestyle rather than go into a two-story house, even though there's more room, more space. You
Mhm.
don't know what that's about. Now you may like it, but
Mhm.
that is totally a life changer. So,
Yes.
you know, you've just narrowed perspective and choices to look for a certain thing. Okay.
Yes,
And
correct.
so that is
Correct.
really, really important. I mean, you think it's a no-brainer, but
Yes,
just if you're old school and you're taking notes, paper and pencil, that's the top line. All right. Or you just
correct.
put it in a notepad or whatever, you know.
Mhm.
But anyway,
Exactly.
that's what you have to do because
Exactly.
that becomes part of the foundation for your rewired life.
Correct.
Rather
Correct.
than wait a year before you get to see a place,
Mhm.
do it now.
Exactly. I can
Right.
tell you one of the priorities is that we want a big garden for the dogs because we know we're going to have more than the 2 dogs that we currently have. So we've put the priority that it has to be a ranch style house, but and I'm okay whether it's a 1 floor or 2 floors because we're going to rent. So that I already know. I already know that we're going to buy a used car, which I'm okay with that too, because there's other priorities. So we've talked about little things, like you've said,
So,
things
you
that you
know,
don't
if you have
usually do.
regarding a used car, so even if you buy a new car, a Kia or a Mercedes or whatever,
Mhm.
it's going to be used a month later as a used car.
Exactly.
You're driving around.
Exactly.
So you got to get
Uh-huh.
your head around. It's okay that somebody else drove the thing. Who
Yeah.
cares? As long as it works.
Exactly. Exactly. And so all of these things, because I was telling my husband, I was afraid. One of my biggest fears was I'm going to want to replicate the Vita. I'm now speaking Spanish, Jesus. The life I have here, right? That's one of the things that you usually do. You want to maintain that lifestyle. And that's one of the biggest mistakes that people do. You don't set expectations. You don't open your eyes to reality and say, I live in a comfortable place. I'm in a little pink bubble. I have to face reality. Let's see what's really happening in the world, right? I think that's one of the biggest problems that a lot of people have when they're relocating, like you were saying, not visualizing ahead of time.
So you're going to be in a suburb planned
Well, yes,
community setting,
absolutely.
right?
Yes.
And it may be a gated community.
Most probably. Yes.
Yeah, and uh, that will be a $500,000 at least.
Yes. Uh-huh. Yes.
All right. I mean, yeah, I know you're not going to buy it. You're going to rent it first, and that no, that's the right
Exactly.
thing. Yeah.
Yes, correct.
So you're looking at 1,000 a week. It might not be that high. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I mean, just so you have an idea, it may not be that high. Maybe it's
Yes.
only 1,800 or 2,100. Who knows? But
Yes.
and it won't be close in to the downtown. There'll be a suburban
No,
environment,
exactly.
and
Yes.
you're going to need 2 cars.
Well, at the beginning, it's going to, we've decided right now for one. If we
Mhm.
get two, here's the thing, it's going to be a bonus. So right now, my mind is 1 car. If he gets the second one, good. Why am I saying this? Because you really are in the first year, you have to study where you're going to actually live and what you're going to do and where you're going to end up working and living and all this kind of thing. Our goal, of course, is to eventually buy our new cars, but not at the beginning.
There's
There's
other
no need.
priorities,
Exactly.
right?
So, that's the thing. We talked about what we want. We already have an idea of what we're going to do and how we're going to do things. And we've been talking little by little. And incredibly, I have to say that one of the things that I suggest couples to do is to sit down and say, have we really talked about the real things that we need to talk about? Are we avoiding them? Why? Because I asked my husband the same question. Are we avoiding anything? Is there anything that we haven't said? Have we really touched bases on the real topics that matter, like cars, like where we're going to live, the communities, and all this kind of stuff? And we started talking, and we had moments where he would be like surprised and I would be surprised. And, you know, that's what it is. Like you said, it's better to open your eyes right now and not be surprised at the very last minute because you didn't set expectations.
So you're on the right road. It's a pathway, and
Yes.
there'll be some exit ramps.
For sure. For sure.
Resting places. So what about
Yes.
sports? Do you have that like I mentioned, swimming pool? I assume that in your
Yes.
compound there's tennis, there's whatever people need.
Yes, exactly. There's soccer, football, soccer, there's tennis, there's basketball courts, there's the swimming pool.
Yeah.
And you currently see people on their bicycles. My husband is one of them that goes around the community, but like even down the freeway, and he goes around and he does his cycling and all this kind of stuff. And he actually does it at the office during his lunchtime. He's a very active guy because of his, like I was telling you earlier, his diabetes. I am a little bit lazier, I'm going to admit. I'm staying at home, I'm with the dogs. So for me, moving is like walking with the ladies here in the community, having a chat, or just walking around around the table even, because you're busy building your business. And I'm not putting it as an excuse. As long as I move, as long as I get up, that's what matters to me. Like, put your head into what you want. And that is the exercise that I do. Like, I move myself. Otherwise, you're just going to be stagnant and you're going to be depressed, because the country, like I told you before, it's in development. So some ladies, you do see them in bicycles, but they're usually riding the bicycles in their abaya, which is a little bit difficult to do. So I don't do that. I prefer to stay at home and either use the gym, do the walk, the treadmill, I'm sorry, or swim. You know, that's what we do. That's how we stay active.
Fascinating conversation. I thank you.
Thank you, Ed.
So let's talk about one last thing here about
Sure.
Healthcare. So Houston's got fabulous medical centers, but it's huge. Rice University is a huge medical center, and there's others.
Right.
All over the place. So I assume you need to get set up way in advance with a provider, whether it's some big insurance company, and get all that set up way in advance, because there may be some research that you need to do to what's better. So like I'm tied in with, because it's very different here, but healthcare, a hospital that has a healthcare system.
Okay.
And it's fabulous, and I have a doctor that I've become friendly with personally, and thankfully my health condition is terrific, and hopefully it'll continue that way. But many people don't have that, and they need more care. So the healthcare situation is really important to make sure you're comfortable with what you're going to be doing, or what,
Mm-hmm.
about your husband's condition.
Mm-hmm.
It's very
Mm-hmm.
manageable under normal
Mm-hmm.
conditions,
Yes.
but you need to understand totally upfront. So all these other things, driver's license, global entry. Have you joined global entry in
Yes.
the US? Yeah, it makes a difference.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah,
Now, I'm not always lucky to get it. They don't always give it to you, even if you tell them, but I have global entry, and they're like, good for you. I'm not always lucky because keep in mind, when I buy my tickets, I buy them in Saudi Arabia. So they don't know about global entry. And they give me all the tickets to all the airports where I'm going to arrive. So by the time that I give it to the American airport, there is no global entry number.
yeah, yeah.
So
Meaning a faster line.
exactly,
Yeah,
entry, exactly.
right,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
right. Well, you ought to just consider how that could be done, because
Yeah.
there is a way, but I can't enunciate it.
Oh, all I know that I've done is that I tell them that I would love for them to reissue the tickets if they could please reprint them, and because I have global entry, and sometimes only one time, I can tell you, I'm not going to lie to you, one time they did it, and they did include the global entry number. That was it. But I'll figure it out. We'll see how we do
Yeah,
it.
yeah. And for both of you.
Exactly.
Otherwise, you have to wait 8 hours until they get through the lines. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, okay. Well, this has really been fascinating, and
Thank you,
I
Ed.
thank you for sharing all this information.
Oh, I'll be sharing much more, in throughout the year. There's so many things that come to mind when you're in the process of moving. There's personal things that you want to share, your fears, your concerns. Like you were saying, the US has changed so much. There's so much going on that you look at the TV, that you look at YouTube, and you're thinking, is this really what's really happening in the world? Because I haven't seen that here. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, you're in a controlled environment, and you're going to want to
Exactly.
create that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it's important. So,
Mm-hmm.
uh,
It's scary. It's scary
yeah.
actually to think that that's
Mhm.
happening. And I told my husband already, we're going to try to avoid, these places as much as we can,
Well,
because
it'll be mental. Um, so the Houston metro region is huge, and there's a lot of places. If you're going to rent, maybe you're not going to need to sign a long-term agreement at first, in
mm-hmm,
case you're
mm-hmm,
going to need to change.
mm-hmm. Yes. Yes, we
Yeah,
talked about that too, a 6-month contract. I think 6 months is usually what it takes for you to know what's going to happen, right?
yeah,
Rarely a year is required, but normally the 6 months. So we've talked about that too as well.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, but we'll see what happens. So I'll have more to share out there on my LinkedIn profile for all of the people that are interested to hear what's happening.
Great. So thank you, Sandra Corona, for being my guest again on Global TV Talk
Thank you,
Show.
Ed. My
This is great.
pleasure.
I'll send you the information regarding the event coming up on March 8th, and
Perfect.
I'll connect you with Doreen.
Excellent.
I think
Thank you.
you'll be simpatico right away.
Thank you, Ed. I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. I
Thank you.
appreciate y'all.
Good night.
Thank you, Ed. Bye-bye. Good night.
Thank you.